Hey, what is going on, everybody? Today I just wanted to quickly throw out a TheoryCraft build, calling it Thrasherr go Basherr, because it is a basic skill build, and as we know, Bash is OP. Anyway, I highly suspect that this is going to be one of the best builds for Spiritborn late game, depending on changes to Paragon, the values of the skills themselves, and just whatever might happen between all of season 5 and the start of season 6 in terms of balance changing and figuring out what will work, what won't. Anyway, let's get into it. Like I said, this is an endgame build. It is not something to just start out with. Anyway, let's get into it. Harmony. If you've been keeping up with Spiritborn content creators at all, you know that there are two main uniques that stick out from the rest, and some are a bit more niche. But Harmony and I'm going to mess this up, but Sepazantek are two massive, and I mean massive, uniques for this class. But we'll start with Harmony. Harmony says your skills are all additionally Jaguar, Eagle, Gorilla, or keyword Centipede skills based on your secondary Spirit Hall choice. In our case, we're rocking Jaguar for our primary and Gorilla for our secondary, which this means by default, your primary choice has the text at the bottom that says all skills are now whatever you choose, but in our case, it's Jaguar. So this is Jaguar, this is Jaguar, 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 even though they're not by default. And then with Harmony, our second Spirit Hall choice is Gorilla, so all of these are also now Gorilla skills. There's some important mechanics that happen specifically with this second Spirit Hall choice that make this build very strong. Anyway, each spirit type on a skill increases its damage by 50%, and that's multiplicative, even though this doesn't show it. 50% multiplicative damage. So that means, for example's sake, Gorilla, Eagle, even though once again it doesn't show it on this. Every skill on Spiritborn is Eagle, but anyway. The Gorilla, Eagle, Jaguar, because of our primary choice, is what this is. So it gets 150% multiplicative. This gets 200% multiplicative because it is all types based on our spirit choices with working with Harmony. But this isn't focusing on Withering Fist, even though it has that extra 50% multiplier. Anyway, I think I've explained the mechanic enough. These skills are also Gorilla and Jaguar. That's the fundamental premise. And for each different one, it gets 50% multiplicative. Anyway, our second one, I am not 100% on this choice. It kind of depends on how well... It depends mainly on ferocity and what bucket of attack speed it falls under. If it goes under cap 1 or cap 2. If you don't know how that mechanic works, there are tons of YouTube guides and resources on like max roll, for example. I'll put a link in the description about it. But depending on how well this maintains our Ravager and Razor Wings, it might be a good choice. In which case, you could do you could change Razor Wings around to what I have set as right now, which is consumes 3 charges. instead of the other one, which gives you a 10% chance to gain a stack back upon them returning, or 20% if you have a barrier. Anyway, jumping around in place. This is not 100%. The whole build is, but pretty much all the rest of them are like key aspects that is just a must. One is the rapid aspect, because it falls under the second attack speed cap. Once again, I'll link it in the description if you care to understand all of that. Obviously we're rocking tons of basic skills, attacks beyond basic skill, plus all the multipliers this build has. It's just crazy. Anyway, maximum ferocity, because we want, just increasing attack speed stacks, because why not? And yeah, that's pretty much it. This can probably be switched out, but once again, I'm not 1,000,000% sure what's going to be the best. Let me scroll up a bit. Okay, aspect of fleet wings. Razor Wing is now also an incarnate skill. Don't really care an absolute ton about that. With passive, you're unhindered. Unhindered is very nice because it means you can move through stuff freely, pretty much. Upon activating Razor Wing, you gain 15 to 30%. Obviously, you want the max roll. Increased movement speed per active Razor Wing. So this is especially useful. Like, you could probably switch this out for one of the other movement speed ones, and in which case you would get rid of Razor Wings and probably go like the Hunter, most likely. And that gives you a bit more build diversity, but I'm not quite exactly sure how this is going to look once you actually get to try it in the game, so to speak. So this is kind of just me messing around with stuff. But anyway, let's move on. Sepazantec. This item is crazy for this build because it gives you a couple different things. Namely, you have ranks to follow through in the base stats of the item, and follow through gives you 10% multiplicative, or here I'll jump over and just show it. Gives you 10% multiplicative increased damage for basic skills, and if it's a third attack, which is a mechanic for the basic skills on the Spiritborn, if it's a third attack, then it's doubled, and you can level this up to 3 base, obviously, which gives you 60% when you get the double bonus on it. But Sepazantec says you get 1 to 200 increased additional damage. That's not multiplicative, which actually helps your damage quite a lot. Anyway, always use their third attack, meaning you're always getting the double, this bonus segment of the follow through passive. And every third cast unleashes triple strikes, which I have found out through watching other content creators what exactly that means. If it's like you get 3 attacks in one spot, or if it's like a cone. And as far as I understand in the answers that were given, it is more like a cone. Anyway, we do aspect of combined strikes because this is 152% multiplicative damage once you use all 4 skills. I'm trying to see if I remember that right. That sounds right. 152% multiplicative damage on your basic skills. This, oh gosh, is this even going to show up? Okay, aspect of adaptability is another big basic skill multiplier that's well known in every build. Same with aspect of Moonrise, which is another 80% multiplicative basic skill damage, and you get 15% movement speed, and you get 20% attack speed on your basic skills. If I'm not mistaken, the attack speed on Aspect of Moonrise also falls under cap 2 of your attack speed. We're taking basic skill damage for the weapon for obvious reasons. Max life for your armor slots, because that is a primary defensive mechanic of this build, and I'll explain that real quick. And then these three are, you know, just generic. The three main types I usually worry about most is fire, poison, and lightning. That's why I put those there instead of diamonds. Explaining the mechanic that I was just talking about. The armor is percent max life, as a ton of builds do, because if we go into this board here, we will stumble across two very specific passives that are absolutely ridiculous. I expect to get nerfed some way or potentially reworked. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, as far as I know, Barbarian is the only other class that has a passive that gives multiplicative percent health. Spiritborn will also now have that capability, and it's going to be nuts, because it says, if I am reading this right, and if they don't change it to what I think it might be, would be its rework anyway. Casting a gorilla skill grants 15%, and this is multiplicative, increased maximum life for 10 seconds. Meaning you are only limited to how many times you can cast a gorilla skill in 10 seconds. And say you're getting one attack per second, even, that's 150% multiplicative HP, maximum life, sorry. Earlier, I had mentioned, with Harmony, your second Spirit Hall choice becomes all skills. This means that every single skill you cast is a gorilla skill, meaning you're always getting percent max life. This combos very well with Fueled, which is going to increase life on kill equal to 15% of your max life when you have at least 4 stacks of ferocity. And this combos really well with Ravager, because you can have a minimum count of ferocity, and it says undefined, but if you go to level 3 it says 4. I'm assuming this means that it caps at 4, and level 4 and 5 don't give you any more ferocity, but we don't know. So you have your minimum ferocity always, meaning this is always going to happen every time you get a kill, so you're getting a ton of life on kill. This is stacking your life to ludicrous numbers, absolutely insane numbers, and depending on how you structure your gear, you can be really, really tanky between this and resolve stacks from your Rock Splitter third passive. And here's the other one. This passive in of itself is just going to be busted. I swear it's going to be in every single build. It's just too good. Anyway, once again, gorilla skills deal 15% multiplicative increased damage to knock down enemies, which is nice, don't get me wrong, that will take extra damage, but the second part, and have a 15% flat chance to execute them if they are not a boss. We saw during the Season 5 PTR how busted execute is on the rogue, but the thing is with the rogue, you had to stack 50 points of, I can't remember the passive to save my life. It's not victimized, whatever it was something in the Paragon board for it. Anywho, you had to stack to 50. This is just a flat 15% chance. You don't need a lucky hit. You don't need anything other than it being a gorilla skill. And it does execute elites based on this text. I think that this is going to get a massive nerf. Either they're going to tie it somehow to, you know, it has to be a gorilla centipede, or they make it to where it doesn't execute elites as well. Who knows? These two passives are just absolutely ludicrous, though. And these are big selling points. Because even if the basic skills aren't necessarily up to par, quote unquote, this is going to be in every single build. It's going to be, like I said, just nuts. And hopefully with the way that Thrasherr stacks, with all of this setup, your single target's just gonna melt things. You get up to 30% with 3 points. Yeah. So it's 15% for every 100% movement speed. And the plan is to just outright have 200% movement speed at all times. This is your main single target damage stacker. Hitting enemies with Jaguar skills increase damage they take from you by 0.3 up to 30%, meaning you have to hit them 100 times to get the max benefit. And obviously, with your gear stacking onto this, you can get, you know, 100% multiplier, or, you know, something crazy. Once again, depending on how you masterwork, and if you get a GA on certain pieces of gear that way you don't have to masterwork into it, whatever. Furnace, also a massive damage passive for Jaguar. Gives you 6% multiplicative increased crit strike damage per stack of ferocity. And once again, with Ravager earlier, I'll show it again. The passive increases your minimum ferocity. And assuming that this caps at level 3 for 4 stacks of ferocity, you'll always have bare minimum 24% multiplicative crit strike damage. And you'll have to balance out how much crit strike damage you have on your gear versus other stats. Anywho, and to sum it all up, we have adaptive stances. The order that you use all of your skills is extremely important. You know, you're using your eagle skill last is really big, because that's where you're going to get your multiplier from the movement speed passive. Using your gorilla skill first is going to be big, because you not only get 30% damage reduction off of using it, but you also get your stacks of resolve per enemy hit, which is 20% damage reduction per stack. Centipede gives you lifesteal, but this isn't insanely massive for just like clearing. It might be useful for boss fights, but you'll be healing so much off of field that unless ads aren't spawning during a boss fight, you should be fine. As well as you have insane damage reduction from gorilla. Anyway, so the skill order is gorilla, centipede, eagle, jaguar, and or it will be rock splitter, withering fist, thunder spike, into just spamming thrash. And then Ravager and Razorwing, you're pretty much just using off cooldown. Like anytime you have them up, you have to, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe I. Oh yeah, okay, so you don't even have to be moving with this. Cool. Anyway, sum it all up. The notes that I have written will tell you exactly what I just said. The skill order that you need to use your abilities. It'll teach you all the intricacies that I just went through, and I probably could have done it in a more concise manner, but regardless. Yeah, that's it. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. All right. This class is absolutely nuts. It has so much potential for so many different things. But we went with a basic skill concept that I think will go through the absolute roof.